All right, if the blues class can take their seats, please. What are you doing? Come on, you got front row here. You whine a bitch at the Bluesfest. You're not front row. You got front row. Get up here, Bill. Come on. Oh, he's not cooperating. Well, thank you, everyone, for coming today. It's an exciting year. It's 20 years. We never thought we'd get past 2. But then we got past 4. Then they threw us off Victoria. They gave us the waterfront, and we won't go away because of people that are in this room. So we've got an exciting new team, and they're all out there. But these lights are killing me. Okay, Walt's the tallest of our team. So Walt Hansen, we all know Walter. Walter's been for 20 years in the beer business, first at Labatt's, then at Molson. And everyone in Essex County know Walter and Steph from Molson Coors. They've been with us for 10 years. So if there wasn't beer, there would be no blues. And Walter, I think he's our vice president or treasurer or secretary or all of the above. Our president, Walter's been with us for 19 years. So he knows all about the Bluesfest, so he knows more about it than I do. And I kind of hate him in a way because my wife used to kick me out of bed at about 7 in the morning and go, Walter's going to beat you there. And we always had this running. Walter was always the first one at the festival and the last one. I used to sleep 3 hours. I think he slept 2. I'm pretty sure he's a vampire. And Rob Petroni, Rob's over here. Rob is our new president. He's the president because he's the only one that put up his hand. And Rob has not missed the Bluesfest. Rob was with the Essex Kent Building Trades, who our very first sponsor was CAW Local 444. Larry Bauer, and then we lost Larry, and Kenny Luenza picked up the reins. And then our second sponsor was Windsor Star. And then within 2 or 3 years, so many of them came on board. But Essex Kent Building Trades, which is all the plumbers, electricians, carpenters, painters, millwrights, they've been with us 19 years. And Rob hasn't missed a festival. And now he's the business manager with Leuna. They're the ones making the big hole in the ground from the bridge to whatever. They're working their tails off. So Rob's a big blues fan. And between Walt and Rob, they're great salespeople, and that's what the festival needs. Sponsorship is pretty much where our growth is. And I'll tell you what kind of team this is. I thought they'd do well. In fact, I knew they'd do well because I know most of the players. But one of our board members, who was our first sponsor, or our first volunteer, Nick Zoots, he's been in the hospital for a couple of weeks. He had some back surgery. He was on better stuff than Rob Ford was on. And from his hospital bed, he locks a $5,000 sponsor in Toronto. Now, I'm a pretty good salesman, but no one can beat Nick Zoots at that. And Nikki is one of our board members. And Doug Gerard, there's Dougie right here. Dougie's Skilled Trades. Dougie's one of these high-wire Cirque du Soleil kind of guys that set up the festival. And then it's kind of a dangerous act, especially when you got a big stage like that. And between Colin Wood and Bernie Martin and Dougie and some of the 1973 retired Skilled Trades guys, we're really blessed that we've got one of the best crews in Canada. And then our stage guys, Rob Nada and Mike Hello. I mean, Rob runs ADM, so if he can run ADM and keep that factory from blowing up, he can handle our stage. And thank you, Doug. And Doug's a big blues fan, 10 years a volunteer. So thank you, Doug, for stepping up. And our executive director, which is kind of the air traffic controller, we're not really blues people. We're more just in time, and there's a million details, and they're always falling through the cracks, and then people start yelling, and then I run for the stage, and then I let Louise handle it. Well, now Carol's doing that. So Carol, you're going to be the most loved person because you pay everyone, and the most hated at the same time. So. And all the sponsors are all listed, but one of the big reasons that we made it through 20 years is because people like Jimmy Creighton, who's been always carrying the torch. Between John Fairley and Ted Shaw, they pestered City Council so much they gave us $3 million to shut up, and we've got the best stage in Canada. So the media has always been, arts and culture is always the first thing that gets beat up when you have a tough economy. And you see that with the theaters. You see that with, I just heard the Racebacks retired. I mean, that's a huge hole in our cultural thing. They did such a great job in theater. So it's always tough, guns or butter, hockey teams, or new tubas for the marching band. Well, that's why everyone's got 50-year-old tubas. So the media has been really, really, really good to us. And we've done festivals throughout Canada and U.S. And the media, I think because Windsor and Detroit, our history with CJOM and CKLW and CBC and all the things over the 50s and 60s, we were way ahead of the curve and living beside the most important music city in the world. That's why our musicians, pound for pound in Canada, are one of the best. And our media is some of the best. Windsor's always been you look at the national TV and there's someone who used to be here in Windsor. So they seem to move on. We're the training ground. And I think that's one of the reasons why the festival has survived for 20 years is because the media has really educated the people. I mean, who would know who Johnny Johnson is? I mean, he's just a guy from St. Louis who's a piano player. But when you do the history, he's basically the godfather of rock and roll. He hired Chuck Berry, not the other way around. So, and many of these artists have played for us over the years. So we're fortunate that we started when we did because it's a tough economy out there. We've lost so many good festivals. And we thank the fans and the media for keeping it alive because after 20 years, we've done every dog and pony trick. We're running out of ideas, so we got some new people who are very creative. And maybe, Rob, you can come up with some wacky ideas like getting married in an airplane. That was dumb, but it worked. So why don't we bring the guys up here so you can meet them, and maybe they can tell you some stories. Or Walter's got a million stories. Probably half of them he can't tell you. Yes.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming out this afternoon. More importantly, thank you for your support. Again, as Teddy pointed out, without sponsors, the Bluesfest doesn't exist. My history with the Bluesfest started way back when I was a youngin'. Half my life has been spent down on these streets or on that waterfront. 2 different beer companies. Recently was restructured out of my last position. Now I've been full force working for the Bluesfest this year on its 20th year and making it happen, and very proud to be a part of this team, this new board of directors led by Rob Petroni and Carol Petroni and Doug here. It's a great team. We've been out hitting the streets, getting a lot new sponsorships, as well as new avenues that we'd be taking the Bluesfest down. Hopefully other than just being once a year down at the waterfront, trying to get it into some local places, put on a show here and there just to keep the blues alive and in everyone's mind throughout the year. So thank you and enjoy. And Rob?
I've got to move this down a little bit. Of course, the very first thing that we should do is thank all of our sponsors, and they're on the poster, and some sponsors came late that aren't on the poster. From Lioness' standpoint, there's a lot of cross-sponsorship, which is great. Blackburn Radio has always been a big supporter. This year we brought on Harris Marketing that did all of the Lioness stuff, so we've got a high-powered marketing company working with us. And all of the other sponsors. As far as a wedding goes in an airplane, I guess, Ted, it depends how well it goes this year. There may be not a wedding, but possibly a divorce next year in an airplane. So, and quite honestly, that's one of the reasons that Carol's involved, because she is the only person that I can yell at that'll yell back at me. So what we did this year, everybody's asking, so what's the difference in the Bluesfest? And basically what happened was, to dispel all the rumors out there, last year Ted and Louise were being pulled in a million different directions. A lot of people in this town pulled together and said to Ted and Louise, you can't let this die. This is the community's festival. This is Windsor's festival, and we will all pull together and pull it out of the fire somehow. Fast forward to a couple months later, Ted says, hey, how about we'll donate the festival to a non-profit, which we did. We started a non-profit called Bluesfest Windsor. It's exactly the same. We have an executive board. We still have all of our volunteers. We're mixing in new volunteers to learn from the seasoned volunteers that have been doing a fantastic job for 20 years. I was the person that just showed up and shook hands and kissed babies and drank beer and had a great time, and all of the stuff going on in the background was just incredible now that we really get to see the nuts and bolts of it. So basically what we have done this year is take Ted and Louise. We gave them wings. It's the Bluesfest on Red Bull this year. That's really the equivalent of what we've got going on. The new team is very excited. We thought that we were going to put some energy into this festival, which I believe we have. But with the volunteers and Ted and Louise, God bless them, they have more energy than maybe a lot of us put together here in this room. The ideas that flow out of Ted's head, sometimes we just have to walk away and have a drink and come back and say, explain that to me again. But it's been awesome. So we're very excited this year. Everything's the same. We're just adding some more sponsorships, some more sponsorship opportunities, some more lounges along the riverfront for bigger sponsors that want to come on board, and they are coming on board. This year, the Windsor Spitfires have a platinum sponsorship, their own little VIP area with their own tent that they're going to take care of their season ticket holders. So we're very proud of sponsors like that. Other than questions, if there's any questions, I think that's all I've got, really. Watch all the bands. Enjoy all of the bands. Any questions?
Ted Shaw always has questions. He always got to trick us. He's asked them all?
You've asked them all? Awesome.
Well, I just want to talk. We did something a little different because now that it's nonprofit, we can now go after grant money. And grant money, there's a lot of big grant money out there. And the province of Quebec probably does the best job. I mean, they throw millions at arts and culture. So now that when you're for-profit, that you're like evil, trying to make a buck. But if you're nonprofit, then you can step up to the trough and hopefully get a couple checks from them. And the arts councils in Toronto and the province and whatever. So that's what we're hoping for, because the more money you have, like Rob was saying, the more horsepower you have, and the bigger the bands you can get, and the cheaper your ticket prices could be. And our ticket prices are going to stay low. We're proud that we're probably one of the lowest ticket prices in Canada. But we have an advisory board, so we figured, why burn out 4 or 5 people? Just let's burn out 20 people. So we put together an advisory board, and if you saw it on the invitation, it was our 3 biggest sponsors, Chris Taylor from Local 200, Dino Chiodo from Local 444, and Bruce Dickey from 2458. John Fairley's been a big supporter. We're doing things with St. Clair and St. Clair alumni. John knows the media. John knows music. So John's a great advisor with us. Lori Baldassi's our community relations person. Lori's everywhere. Blackburn Radio, she's helped us out. She's been with us for years and years. Tommy Labin, he's one of our musical helpers. Tommy's from Vancouver. He's got 2 Junos. He discovered 2 people, and he got thrown out of the office twice. He was the first guy in Canada to sell 1 million records in the blues, which would blues and country doesn't sell like rock and roll. Well, country does now. In fact, rock and roll doesn't sell like country does today. But those days were different, thanks to a girl from Windsor and a guy named Garth Brooks. But Tommy Lavin's a great supporter. He knows everyone, and he's got the best ear in the music business. He's a great producer, owns his own studio. And a little story on Tommy. Tommy went to his record company and said, I got this guy out of Texas, and you got to look at him. He's really, really good. And as the president of, I forget, A&M, I think it was A&M Records. So what style is he? He says, he's blues. Well, I'm not interested. That guy was Stevie Ray Vaughan. So about 5 years later, he says, hey, you really screwed up on the Stevie Ray Vaughan thing. I got this other guy, and he's just like Stevie, and he's amazing. He plays the guitar upside down. Guy out of Mississauga. He's blind. He's unbelievable. What's he playing? Blues? Nah, not interested. Year later, Roadhouse. Jeff Healy sells millions of records. So Tommy's going to be a big help. We've got 2 New Yorkers on the bill. For some reason, we're bigger in New York than we are in Belle River. I don't get it. But Arnie Goodman, you've seen Arnie. Arnie's like even taller than Walt. He's always that guy on stage. Like, get out of the way. I want to watch the band. That's Arnie. He's a bull in a china shop. But Arnie's got his own record company. He's really tied in big with the Brits. If you name a festival from Newport to Mossport to Woodstock, Arnie's always been there. He's also got the biggest music magazine on the East Coast called Elmore Magazine, and Arnie's been our good luck charm. He's been telling everyone across the U.S., because he travels everywhere with his magazine, that the best party, the best fun, the best festival is Windsor. So Arnie's now on our advisory board, and he was on the advisory board a day, and he calls up and says, "I got a TV station coming to Windsor." Like, he didn't wait 2 days. Him and Nick, I think they got something going. Nicky's in a hospital selling sponsorship, and Arnie's getting TV stations to come to Windsor. So we got they're called Madhouse TV. They got a small studio in New York, but they're big on the internet, so they're coming down with a 6-camera film crew. High definition, as good as any of the nationals can do, even better. So they're coming down, and they're going to capture everything. So hopefully when we go through all the editing, maybe we'll end up with a DVD that we can turn over to hospice or someone to make a few bucks and get the word of the blues out there further. And Mike Carden. Mike's a good friend of Arnie's. Mike's been down to our festival, and Mike's the president of Eagle Rock Records. And Eagle Rock, if you see any of those movies or any of those documentaries or any of those movie things, from the Rolling Stones to you'll always see that logo, Eagle Rock. So Mike is a real heavyweight player in our group. And then locally we've got Craig Allen. He's our legal beagle. Craig's been to the festival for 20 years. He put his way through college, through law school in Toronto, playing the piano. He's a great, he's probably our top piano player in Windsor. And he's with Sut Strasberg, so that's a powerful logo when someone wants to slip and fall us. So hopefully he'll keep us out of trouble. Arnie will keep the TV stations going. Walt will be selling, and Rob's selling. And we've got our second Detroit sponsor. Rob just got off the phone. And for years we've banged on doors in Detroit, but we could never get the CEOs to justify throwing money into another country, even though the biggest blues festival in Michigan, Ohio, or Indiana is us. We're Detroit's blues festival, as well as Windsor's. So Rob just got off the phone, and we got the D, which is the new Detroit casino in Las Vegas. So they're sponsoring us. So thank you, Rob, for getting some Detroit money in. Are they paying in Canadian or U.S.?
Canadian.
So I think that's the bands. That's what we're really here about. We got Bobby Rush coming back. If you haven't seen Bobby Rush, you have to see him. It should be a bucket list thing. We've been fortunate to have all the legends over 20 years. And Bobby Rush is 77 years old, and he performs like a 35-year-old. I don't know what's in his genes or how much Red Bull he takes or whatever, but Bobby is he's a throwback to the Cab Calloway days. And Bobby's job in the 50s, he was just a kid, used to paint a mustache on to look older, and he was playing in all the blues clubs. But Chess Records, he'd play at night, but in the daytime, he was a driver. So everyone from the South, Buddy Guy, Coco Taylor, everyone who was coming to Chicago to get out of the cotton fields and start their music career, Bobby Rush was the very first person they met. So Bobby knows everyone. He was when China called the United States 3 or 4 years ago and asked them, "We want to do a major blues artist. We want to introduce the blues to China." And he played in front of 500,000 or 1 million people right on the Great Wall. And the president picked one blues artist. Could have sent B.B. King or Bonnie Raitt or any of the great acts. Bobby Rush opened up the blues to 2 billion people in China. So if you meet Bobby, if you want to interview the character of all characters, the funniest guy in the world, and he's solid as an oak tree, and does he love Windsor. He was the guy that brought Honey Boy Edwards and did a 4-little club tour. We did them at the museum, and we did them all the way up through to Hughes Room in Toronto. George Stroumboulopoulos did a 45-minute special on Bobby Rush and Honey Boy Edwards, and Bobby was the guy that made that happen. So Bobby's got a lot of friends in Detroit and Windsor. You got to see Bobby. Dave Mason. There's a little story. I don't know if he's still here. Billy's still here. Billy's with Windsor Taxi Community Charities. They've been with us like 18 years. They're the cabbies. They're the Vets Cab people. And Walter, thanks for coming, Walt. And we're cleaning up because at nighttime our crew they're there until 2 or 3 in the morning, and it looks like a bomb went off. So it's about 2 in the afternoon, And me and Billy are, we're sweeping up. He's getting ready because they do all the burgers, so they're feeding thousands and thousands of people. And we're listening to, we just disagree. And I'm thinking, and Billy's thinking, hey, Paul Bonaventure, he's our sound guy. Hey, isn't that cool? He's playing Dave Mason music. And then we look at the stage. I mean, it sounds just like the record. I mean, it's absolutely perfect. It's got to be a CD. Dave's doing a sound check as we're sweeping. It sounds just like the record. And we had a great time with Dave. And 5 or 6 years later, he puts together this traffic jam concept. Basically, he's doing a tribute to Traffic. They've tried for years to put the band together. It's like putting the Beatles back together. It just didn't work. And so he's doing a tribute to Traffic this year. So not only is he doing his 2 or 3 big hits that he did as a solo artist, but he's doing all those monster hits, Mr. Fantasy and Low Spark of High Heel Boys and whatever. And he's only doing it this year, and he's only doing it in about 30 markets. And his agent called us first. So obviously our crew, that's how good our crew treated Dave. And he really had a good time. So we were the very first booking for the Traffic Jam. And then we got on the phone because we work with other festivals, the major Ottawa Bluesfest, which is probably the 3rd biggest in the world. Boy, is Ottawa doing it right. And he's playing there the night before. So if you love old rock and roll British stuff, you got to see Dave doing the Traffic Jam, a tribute to Traffic, because you won't see it again. There'll never be a reunion of Traffic. I don't know if there's bad blood. It's kind of the hell freezes over Eagle thing. I don't know what it is, but Dave's going to be your only chance to see Traffic. And for the younger people that don't, like my daughter who doesn't know Traffic, you must be there and see Dave Mason doing Traffic, because that's part of that whole British invasion. He was the second wave after the Beatles, Stones, and the Animals. So, and Coco Montoya, we've tried to get him. He's there on Sunday. There's a great band on Friday night, the Jimmies. Tinsley Ellis from Atlanta. You can't miss him. He's right from Atlanta. He's played with the Allman Brothers, recorded with us. He's part of that whole Georgia thing that they've got going down there. Dana Fuchs from New York City. She's an off-Broadway actress. You've seen her face in a million commercials. And she sounds like Janis Joplin so much that she starred on off-Broadway for 5 years in the Janis Joplin play. So she's like everyone always misses Sunday, but Sunday sometimes has the specialty bands. So that's pretty much it. Thank you all for 20 years. We can't believe that we're actually standing here. And thanks to all the media, especially. You've been such great team players. And we've lost so many good festivals. And 10 years ago, I didn't think we'd be still here 20 years later. And with this new team, 20 years from now, they're going to be old and gray and in a wheelchair, and they're going to be looking for the next generation, because festivals should go on and on and on. And there's 800 or 900 in North America, but we're known in the top 50, and that's mainly because the media's done such a good job, and Artie Goodman with the biggest mouth in New York. Thank you so much for coming, folks.